Today, Lara and I are talking to writer, educator, and life coach Molly Young Brown. Among her publications are Unfolding Self, Coming Back to Life, co-authored with Joanna Macy, and Growing Whole, Self-Realization for the Great Turning. She's also recently co-authored a second book in the field of ecology, Coming Together in the Great Turning, which will be released in November 2025. Molly studied psychosynthesis with Roberto Assagioli and offers psychosynthesis coaching and counseling. In this conversation, we chat with Molly about psychosynthesis and bridging personal and global transformation. Enjoy. So, Molly, thank you so much for being with us here today. It's a real privilege. Before we go into some of the books that you've produced and your background in psychosynthesis, I just wanted to start by asking you what you consider yourself to be and what's your role on the planet right now for those people who've never encountered you.
Very simple question to start with.
Question. Who am I and what's my role on the planet? Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, what comes to mind is I consider myself a planetary citizen. I mean, it happens that I live in the United States, but I have a lot of trouble identifying as American because of all the horrible things my government is doing in the world. Um, and besides that, I think we really need to get beyond, you know, political boundaries, and we need to all consider ourselves citizens of the world. And my role on the planet um, is just that, to try and help other people, help everyone, including myself, step into that responsibility and that actually liberation of considering myself a planetary being rather than a political, uh, the word pawn comes to mind, a political person, identified with a particular country.
Mm.
And saying all that, it's saying, but I am. I grew up a white person in the United States in a well-educated family, so I have a lot of privilege and a lot of even unintended power that I carry, and I have to
Mm.
recognize that. So it's all very well and good to say, well, I consider myself a planetary citizen. But if I was living in Gaza as a Palestinian, I would be wanting to say I'm a Palestinian
Mm.
because of the of what's happening there. So my role in the world, I hope, is just to help awaken.
Is it as a
Mm.
teacher?
A teacher,
Yeah.
yes, yeah, teacher,
Hmm.
yeah,
Mm.
but in the best sense of the word, not a preacher,
No, someone who's sort of, are you
but
trying
a
to
teacher,
lead by
someone
example?
who facilitates learning.
Right.
Yeah,
Mm.
Hmm.
facilitates.
Yeah. And whereabouts do you see your greatest focus at the moment? Is it ecology? Is it psychosynthesis? How do you bring these bits together?
Well, I've been for the last, I don't know, what is it, 35 years, I've been working in what's called now called the work that reconnects, or and was called deep ecology. And it was deep ecology because it was the consciousness. It wasn't just like how things fit together, but the consciousness of our deep, deep and radical interconnectedness with all of life. So, but recently, I mean, before that, I was totally entrenched and involved in psychosynthesis, and teaching and training and so forth, and writing. Uh, and then, I'd say early in the 21st century, I started wanting to combine them even more, and both bring the deep ecology perspective to psychosynthesis and bring the psychosynthesis tools, if you will, to to the work that reconnects or deep ecology. And lately I've just really become aware of how critical and how useful
Mm.
psychosynthesis tools, and I say tools, and I don't in any way want to minimize their impact by calling them tools, but disidentification and subpersonalities and just self-awareness and will and all the basics of psychosynthesis
Mm.
can be so useful to people struggling with what we're all struggling with in the world today. Because
Yeah,
I see people, reacting and they don't know what to do when they feel angry. They don't know how to handle their anger. Metabolize it is a word I've heard that I think is useful. Um, and so psychosynthesis is becoming more important to me again.
because
It's never it's never not been important, but in my teaching.
it's kind of interesting because in the book The Great Turning that's your latest book, you were talking about sorry, Growing Whole is the book. Apologies, Growing Whole, but you discuss the Great Turning in that book. And
Mhm.
one of the things you're talking about is that inner work that's needed. And I think at
Mm.
some stage you were talking about activists who get caught up in their cause and they basically they just they lose sight of what they're trying to achieve
Mm.
because they're not at one with themselves. And
Mhm.
we've seen that. I mean, in the UK, we've just seen this organization, Just Stop Oil, and they will maybe throw paint over a painting or something in a gallery, and it's hard to see the connection that what they're trying to achieve. And I think if they were connected to themselves, they would be finding more creative ways to express
Mm.
what they need to tell the public about what their fears are. So yeah, sorry, I'm just riffing on what you just said. I thought it was interesting that how you bring those two parts together, ecology and psychosynthesis. Um, I also just wanted to we were speaking before recording about your early life, and I just wanted to come back to your book and the story you told in Coming Back to Life. In the preface, it was so interesting about you growing up in Los Alamos and what your intuition as a child was teaching you at that point. So this was the 1940s. You were there, and
Right.
they just tested the Trinity, well, the bomb, the first nuclear bomb at Alamogordo, I think a couple of years before you got there. But I'd be
Mm.
really grateful if you could just talk a little bit more about that experience and how you tuned into it.
Yeah. Well, I moved to Los Alamos in 1945, which was actually after Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And I don't, frankly, at the moment, remember how much before that the test was made. I don't think it was years. I think it was months that the test happened, and it might have happened in 44. I can't remember. But anyway, I moved there in 45. I was 3 years old. So I do have memories of that. It's really interesting of being in the car, and we had one of those old Chevrolet coupes that didn't even have a back seat. It just had sort of a area back there, and they had made me a little bed because I was ill, and my sister was in the front seat with my parents. Because in those days it was just all one seat, in the front of our car. It
Mm.
wasn't divided up. Of course, no seat belts either. Anyway, I remember coming into town. I remember seeing soldiers marching in the street because the military was still there. They were in the process of leaving, and the laboratory was transitioning into civilian, being run by the University of California, actually. And my father was part of that transition. He was hired as a personnel director to help with that whole transition, and then ended up staying on as personnel director. So he was not a scientist, obviously. Um, so in many ways, I loved it. It was. we had a forest literally in our backyard. And I remember playing there with my neighborhood friend. And there was just a lot about it that I loved. But I started having stomach problems. And I remember being like in kindergarten and first grade, spending a whole lot of time in the nurse's office and with a stomach ache. And years and years and years later, on a vision quest, I came to the understanding because I was kind of re-experiencing that, and I realized, oh, I couldn't
Mm.
stomach what was happening there because I must have heard things,
Mm.
overheard adult conversations and bombs in Hiroshima, Nagasaki, and people were, how many people died. I don't know what I heard because I have no memory of it, but I
Mm.
do know that I think I sensed on some level.
Mm.
I'm not sure it's intuition or even just instinct, but I sensed that
Mm.
something was amiss, and I was having stomach
Mm.
aches,
Yeah.
and
Your body was responding to
find,
it. Yeah.
yeah, they never could find anything
Mm.
wrong. And
Yeah.
quote, the doctors couldn't find anything wrong, so it was a psychosomatic
Mm.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Mm.
I believe that's what it was because really my family was quite happy. I mean, we had I mean, every family has some, moments of difficulty, but nothing
Mm.
strong enough to have caused me to have stomach aches, I don't think. Anyway, that was my insight many years later about what was going on in Los Alamos.
I,
And I became an anti-nuclear activist partly out of that
mhm.
a sort of sense of a kind of karmic responsibility
Mm.
to try and counteract what had been started there.
Because if you'd have been an adult and psychosynthesis had been around then, we'd be saying, well, listen to yourself, listen to your feelings. What is it telling you? Because
Yeah.
you were that was like an very early example of you tuning in and actually feeling something
Mm.
that was wrong about that
Even though it wasn't,
situation,
even though it wasn't conscious. Yeah.
even though it
Yeah.
wasn't conscious. Yeah, and that is part of psychosynthesis in a way, isn't it?
Mm.
Paying
It's learning
attention
to
to
listen.
the unconscious. Yes,
Yeah,
indeed.
Mm.
yeah. I found the story just so interesting and at just such a pivotal time in US history as well. Like they just dropped the bomb and, you know,
Right.
um, trying to grapple with what that meant for the world afterwards. And you were there, near the laboratories in New Mexico. Fascinating. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you. Mm.
I
Um,
really enjoyed the film Oppenheimer that was
I
put
haven't
out
seen that yet. No.
because,
Mm.
yeah, it was really powerfully impactful. Yeah.
Hello, I'm Lara Rucroft,
And I'm Jamie Carroll.
and we are the hosts of The Gift of Psychosynthesis, a show that brings psychosynthesis psychotherapy to a wider attention in the world.
And we're really pleased that you've joined us. If you're interested in psychosynthesis, maybe consider subscribing. And if you've enjoyed the show, please press the like button as it helps with the algorithm.
From the both of us,
Enjoy
enjoy
the
the
show.
show. Molly, we would love to hear about how you came to psychosynthesis, what brought you to psychosynthesis and how it all started. We know you spent quite a bit of time with Assagioli as well. If you could share about the beginning of your trajectory, please.
Ah, that's another interesting story. I think back on taking a course as an undergraduate in uh, Asian religions. I was really always interested in Buddhism and Hinduism and other, but mostly those two. And I I had been actually I went through a period in uh, junior high and a little bit into high school of being kind of almost a fundamentalist Christian. I was really gung ho. But then some things happened in my church, the church I was attending, politically, that really upset me. And it was like, if you are really Christian, why are you behaving this way? The
Mm.
adults, I might say. Um, so I was, so then when I went to college, I started going to Quaker meetings. And that was a
Mm.
nice, for me, a nice transition of starting to listen to the inner
Mm.
voice and so forth. And then got interested in Asian religions and took a couple of courses in college. And so I was also interested in psychology, but the psychology that I studied in, everybody I think has to take a course in basic psychology. At least I did. And it was like, it was so cut and dried. It wasn't juicy at
Yeah,
all.
can relate
So
to that.
wanting to, and my husband was also studying psychology. Jim was. We got married really young, at least young for me. I was only 19. So we were going to college together. And actually, we took the course in Asian religions together. We both enrolled in it at the same time. So when I started, so then later, fast forward, I'm in Berkeley and I see a course offered through Esalen uh, in San Francisco in the psychology of positive development or something like that. And I took it. It was taught by Jim Fadiman, who became someone known in psychosynthesis circles, certainly, later on. And he had this book called Psychosynthesis by Roberto Assagioli. And he was doing exercises and practices from it. And it was like, yes, this brings together my interest in Asian religion,
Mm.
spirituality, and psychology. How could you have a complete psychology if you don't include the spiritual dimension? I mean, it's like
Mm.
we're not cut off here, you know.
No, yeah.
I'm not sure where we're cut off, but anyway, it's probably here. I don't know. But so it was just like, yes, yes, this is where I want to go, and started
Mm.
studying it, taking courses and classes and reading the book and so on. So that's how I got into it.
How you start, that's how you started. And then you went to Italy to meet Assagioli after that?
Right, right. In
Mm.
1973, I guess we'd been studying it for just a few years by then, maybe 3 years, 3 or 4 years. And we, I said, we've got to go. Carl Jung is dead. We need to go see. Roberto Assagioli is still alive. We need to go study with
Mm.
the great man.
Mm.
So we were very impoverished at the time, but my parents loaned us some money and took care of our kids while we went. And so we went and spent 5 weeks with him. Actually, of that time, we only spent maybe 3 weeks with him because
Mhm.
there was some time we couldn't be with him. But
Mm.
um, we studied first with him, met him first in Florence, and then in Capellona, which was his summer home. We went to Capellona and stayed with a family there and studied with him, continued to have almost daily sessions with him, um,
Mm.
and reading books in his library and reading monographs he'd written, and it was just a very, very rich time.
Did
I
you,
was
s-
thir- I was 31 years old.
how did you communicate with him? Was it in, I know you said he was deaf previously, so you were writing notes, but were they notes in English or Italian, or how was it
Oh, no,
working?
his English was fine.
And,
He was
Right.
very
and
competent in
he
English.
was
So
a
we
he was a
write him.
polyglot, wasn't him? He spoke really well German as well and
I
other
imagine,
languages.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
I didn't know German,
yeah,
so yeah,
yeah.
but
He did speak a few languages.
yeah, he was quite uh, what, trilingual or something. I
Mm,
don't know. He may
yeah.
have spoken French too, for all
Yeah,
I know.
I think French, German, a bit of Russian and English, and
You
obviously
know,
Italian. Yeah,
yeah. So
yeah.
anyway, we would write our questions, and he would and then answer them. And one of the experiences that I we had often is I would write a question and he would start to answer it, and I think, oh, he didn't understand the question. And then I
Mm,
realized he was answering the deeper question
yeah.
that I hadn't
Mm.
even really
Oh,
known I was asking. But so it was talk about intuition. The man was extremely intuitive and tuned in.
mm.
What's the energy like being around
Uh,
him?
Uh, you know, I want to say ordinary. There was a way in which he was just an ordinary person. He wasn't, of course, he was very wise, but I never felt like we had to
mm,
bow down or anything like that.
mm,
We always just felt like being with a an uncle that you're very fond of and
Right.
who's a wise uncle, but
mm,
that just sort of comfortable feeling.
mm.
What did
Yeah.
what also can I ask what do you take from that experience with him? What was the big takeaway from going out there and seeing him?
Well, I don't know. It transformed my life. I mean, it was a turning point, and uh, we became. I mean, I just was totally dedicated to psychosynthesis after that.
Right.
And he
Mm,
said to me, and I think he said it to almost everybody who went to study with him, that we should go back and start a center and start a
mm,
psycho center of some sort. And it was like, yeah, teach this stuff. And there wasn't any sense that we had to arrive at some higher place before we could start.
mm,
And he wanted it to grow. He kept saying,
mm.
this is just the beginning. I want
Mm.
psychosynthesis to,
Yeah. It,
develop and expand and so forth.
yeah. So he trusted you to develop more, to grow his ideas, I believe, yeah. And I wanted to ask you as well, when you were talking about it, because the will and our role here, we with responsibility, what you said about karmic responsibility, and I feel like in my personal life, psychosynthesis is becoming a way of life. You know what I learn, I try to apply in my life. And I've been married. I've been with my partner for years, but I got married last year only. And and I'm curious to ask you. You've been married for almost 64 years with Jim. So I'm really curious if you can share some wisdom and if you can tell us how you bring psychosynthesis and apply psychosynthesis into your life, but mostly into your marriage as well, if that feels
Right.
okay
Yeah.
sharing.
Yeah. Well, when I say it changed my life, I think part of it was that Jim and I were with Assagioli together and we had our
Mm,
sessions together. And so, although he was working with each of us individually, he would, we were, we were in each other's presence when that was happening. So, for example, he would have us write a letter to the higher self every day and also do a free drawing. And then he would
mm,
look at the drawing and just ask kind of guiding questions, if you know what I mean. He'd say, oh, this represents such and such, but he would say, well, what do you think this represents? Or do you think it might represent such and such? So he would make suggestions, but they were very gentle like that. So
mm,
we were doing that with each other. I mean, he would be doing that with Jim, and I would be there watching and listening, and vice versa. So I think that was part of it, is just that we're doing psychosynthesis together and sharing our process with one another.
Mm,
And also, Assagioli talked about marriage, and
mm,
he said that he used the triangle a lot for the idea of synthesis. So he had a triangle, and at each corner of the bottom triangle were the two people. And if they just relate like this, you meet
mm,
my needs, I meet yours, kind of thing, um, it doesn't go very far. So he wanted us to imagine that there was a higher unifying point, a synthesis of the two of us, the synthesis
mm,
couple. And this was kind of what was our purpose as a couple.
mm,
We weren't just there to, you know, give each other whatever we needed, affection and love and stuff. That's important, obviously,
yeah.
but that there was some kind of a higher unifying purpose. That became such a, in my counseling with couples,
Mm,
it was such a valuable thing because to ask a couple, what do you
mm,
think the purpose of your
yeah,
relationship is? And, you
yeah,
know, it 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 takes it to a
yeah,
higher level or a more
Mm.
expanded.
yeah. The
So,
sacred, the sacred of the relationship, isn't it? Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And so
Mm,
even if you can't define it, the idea that there is some higher purpose for your relationship,
mm,
and maybe you're just continually discovering it, and maybe
mm,
it changes, and maybe it expands and evolves, but just the idea that it's there, that you're not just there to on this level,
yeah.
but that there's, and I really do believe that that has is part of what has maintained our relationship. So when we would go through
Mm,
difficult times and we're having a lot of problem with each other, we always know that there's some reason for us being together and we need to hang in there because we have a purpose.
mm.
And
Oh, you,
I used to say to Jim, I love us. So it's
yeah,
not just I love you and you love me, but we love
yeah.
we love what we have together.
Mm. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I will apply that, the sacredness, the higher purpose of and all it's a great laboratory to practice this identification and talk about your feelings without attack. Yeah, yeah. Great. Thank you. Thank
But
you for
also that
sharing that.
It
context as well, just having that
doesn't,
context.
yeah, it
Yeah,
doesn't mean that the couples have to stay together forever.
yeah.
I mean,
Might have be a cycle that has a time to end and
right.
part of that divine mission has been completed, but yeah, yeah,
In my case, it seems like
it
we're
seems
together
like
for the rest of our lives.
64
I'm
years.
really
Wow.
glad about that.
Wow. Congratulations. Congratulations to you and to you both. Yeah.
Thank
I read something here, found it on the growing whole. Um I found such a simple and beautiful definition of psychosynthesis that you share in this book. You say, just as psychoanalysis means the analysis of the psyche, psychosynthesis means the synthesis of the psyche. And I will quote that when people ask me, but I would like you to say more in your view. How do you describe psychosynthesis, Molly?
you.
Oh, another big question.
Literally, it means the synthesis of the psyche because
Yeah.
you take it just etymologically, you take the word apart. Well, in my work with deep ecology and the work that reconnects and Joanna Macy's work, I really am seeing how, I mean, the saying we're all one and we're all one, but that doesn't mean we're all the same, for one thing,
Mhm.
quickly say. But that there is this larger whole of which we're all a part, and to which we all contribute, and to which we are all, from which we are all nourished and main, it's the basis of our lives. Um, and I just feel like psychosynthesis uh, allows us to, on an individual level, to kind of get our little part healthy and whole, so that we can then be
Mhm.
contribute more to the larger whole. It doesn't end with, I am now a well-adjusted individual. It it means now I can really bring my gifts into the world.
Mhm.
And but to do that, I gotta have a lot of self-awareness. To
Mhm.
me, psychosynthesis is about self-awareness and will,
Mhm.
the basics. Um, how to become more aware of, if I have something upsets me, I get angry. Instead of just acting on that anger, like, what's that about? What is that coming from? What's it? Is it something from the past? Is it
Mhm.
something really in the present? Is it, you know, there's just a whole lot of reflection that can happen if you have that basic self-awareness and are
Mhm.
not just acting, uh, reacting, as we say,
Mhm.
responding instead of reacting.
Mhm.
Uh, Reacting is like without even any thought or awareness, just, although sometimes that's important.
Mhm.
I think of times when uh, I saw a small child walking out into traffic. I mean, literally a 2-year-old or something, just a toddler walking out into traffic. I
You
didn't
need
have
to
time
react.
to
Yeah.
stop and think about what I was going to do. I had, like,
Yeah.
I yelled, little boy, stop!
Yeah.
And it worked. The kid whirled around, burst into tears, but came back but came back to the sidewalk. So somehow well, also Julie talks about
Mhm.
instinct being important. I think that was instinct at that point. But
Mhm.
that's a dramatic example. But a lot of the time when we have strong feelings, we really need to reflect on where they're coming from and make sure that it has to do with the immediate situation and not,
Mhm.
something from the past, an old trauma that is coming up and
Mhm.
influencing how we're behaving.
What I really liked in Growing Whole was you really managed to convey really simply, I think, this idea of the psychosynthesis idea of the I and the comparison with the ego. Um,
Hmm.
and I think that's just so important because I don't think that's a concept that the person on the street really necessarily understands that distinction. But would you like to say a little bit more about it? But because it seems to be very important how we have this I, this observer, that's different from the part of us that's just doing our everyday life with,
Going along.
yeah.
Yeah. And it's not a part. It's really interesting because our language is so limited, because not like, well, there's this part here and there's this part here. Well, we can say that about subpersonalities. We can say, but the self or the observer or is I don't know. I think of it more of as a place than a part. Interesting.
Mhm.
And it's interesting my gesture, because it's not even in my
Mhm.
head, it's in my heart. And the 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 still small voice within, as the Quakers say, that sense of, oh, I can observe myself. I can notice what's happening. And from a slightly, it's not really detached, but it's, well, I've heard it called non-attached, not
Mm.
Non-attached.
detached, but
Yeah.
non-attached.
Yeah.
So, so even sometimes I've said to clients and such, even if it's just the very tip of my baby finger that is able to maintain that sense of self-awareness, that's enough. Everything else, I mean, the whole rest of me could be just totally, but there's a little part of me that's going like, wait a minute, what's going on here? What, yeah, and it to me that's one of the greatest gifts of psychosynthesis, and it's not limited to psychosynthesis. There's other
Mm.
psychological approaches that have a similar idea about self-awareness. But a lot of psychologies, when I encountered psychosynthesis, was all mental. It was all, diagnosis and, you know, treatment and this and that. And it was all kind of mechanical, as if our conscious mind could comprehend our whole self. And that's where intuition comes in.
Yeah. I
Which,
mean, what I
yeah.
really liked about the book was that in fact, one of the chapters I think was called "Developing an Observer," and you really helped me and other readers, I think, understand that we can become this bigger container for these, as I think you phrased it, or you borrowed the phrase, for thoughts and feelings, but no one feeling overwhelms us. And I really liked how you were just
Mm.
describing it as non-attachment. It's a state, isn't it, where there's a stillness and you can see all this activity, tension, drama, stress, or whatever we have in our life going on around us, but we can go in and observe it and know that it's not the whole of us. And
Right.
that's when we start sort of accessing that sense of will as well, which you also talk about in the book really
Mm.
well. Like you say, they're the two most important things, and getting that observer, and then once you're in contact with that observer, finding that will to make the change that we want to do, either for ourselves and or outside in, with others or in the wider picture. Um, yeah, I found it really interesting the way you covered it in the book, and it's great.
And that doesn't mean that uh I mean, I was thinking of times when I've just been overwhelmed with emotion, anger or grief or despair or some where I just feel completely lost. But even then, after a couple breaths, after a little bit of venting or whatever I need to do, this little it's interesting because it is the still small voice within. It's not loud. It's very
Mm.
quiet. It's there. It's like, wait a minute. It's okay. It's okay. No, it's all right. What's going on? It's yeah, it
Mm.
reasserts itself. So
Mm.
I can get I can recenter myself after
Mm.
even after a very
Yeah.
big explosion of emotion.
And I wonder if that was what you were hearing at Los Alamos as well, that little voice within at that point.
Maybe,
Yeah.
maybe, yeah.
Mm.
Mm, mm. Sorry,
It
Lara.
is, yeah. It is like the experiencing the turmoil and feeling it, and then gently guiding yourself to that unifying center, which sometimes the mind wants to go back to the story,
Oh,
to the,
right.
and then just gently guiding it and observing and holding and yeah,
It's
yeah.
like there's always more than meets the eye. So even if I'm
Mm.
convinced that the other person, if I'm, say, in an argument with someone else, that they're wrong and I'm right, that wait a minute, but there could be something else going on here. And
Mm.
it might be, where the other person, what the other person who's behaving badly, quote unquote, is in a great deal of pain, and I'm
Mm,
not seeing the pain. And so yeah, they're behaving badly, but it's coming out of pain. And I
mm,
can have, even if they're not able to get to that still small
mm,
voice within themselves, if I can go there, I can help them go there too.
mm,
Yeah, I believe that. I also think if you can go there, your energy can almost help them in your presence stabilize themselves a little. I'm not sure that they can go all in and
mm,
find their eye immediately, but if you're exuding or you have that calm presence, I believe that others tune into that and they
mm.
start to find their way.
The same way that if you're in a crowd of angry people, you're going to feel that anger.
Yeah, yeah, you're going to get all
Mm.
those
Yeah.
high beta waves knocking you off, right?
Right.
Mm,
The
Yeah, yeah.
same way, so shall we say positive feelings or calm or peace or love also affects the field.
mm. Yeah. I found it interesting. You were talking earlier on about the ripple effect when you start practicing the psychosynthesis way, the ripple effect that it has on other people and people around you. And when you start applying those things, I'm talking about my own experience when I start acting differently, knowing, getting upset about something, for example, but choosing a time frame, a timeline to, okay, I'll be upset, but there is my will be engaged at some point, and I have the desire to get out of that narrative and see the bigger picture and come to that unifying center. And it's quite a big change because people who know you closely start noticing that difference. And it's just like I feel that quite strong in my life now because I'm on the end of the fourth year of my training. So that I've been through this change and this awareness, and it's quite interesting to observe. To
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And it's not that I'm gonna repress my anger. I'm not going to
Mm,
just say, well, come
mm,
on, be this calm, wonderful person all the time. It's that I'm gonna actually it's kind of like I'm gonna figure out the most strategic and helpful way to express that anger.
mm,
I'm not going to yell at my husband, but I'm going to say, you know, I'm really having a hard time with this, and but I have to
mm,
calm myself down enough to be able to
mm.
do that,
Yeah,
to talk
yeah,
about what's upsetting me in a
mm,
way that he can hear, for example. I mean, if you're yelling at
yeah,
someone, the odd thing is if you're yelling at someone, they can't hear you. It's not a
yeah.
matter of volume. It's yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm curious, Molly, for people who are starting in psychosynthesis, like becoming psychosynthesis therapists now, um, do you have any advice, any suggestion on how to start, how to bring this work forward? You know, you
Mm.
mm.
Well, obviously, do your own work.
Mm.
You
Do your
know,
own therapy, yeah.
you got to work on yourself and uh, use all the practices that you can use. I still, to this day, write letters to my higher self, only I don't call it higher self anymore. I write letters to Gaia, or I write letters to the Great Mother, or
Whatever
whatever
name, yeah,
form I want to give it.
God. Yeah.
But it's still, it's still a technique. I feel like it's one of the best quote
Mm,
techniques in psychosynthesis. So you have to constantly work on yourself. And when you're with a client, uh, being being as fully present with that person as you can be. Um, uh, John Furman and Gila wrote a book called The Psychosynthesis Psychology of Love. I think that's what it's called, something like that. But the
Hmm.
word love
I know
definitely.
it. Mm.
And I just you know, too many psychologists, I think, or therapists go at it mentally and they keep themselves separate and kind of above
Mm.
the client, like they're the healthy ones and the client is the and I just really feel like we have to join with our
Mm.
clients and yeah, see their pain, see
Yeah.
their dysfunction, but also their potential and
Yeah.
knowing that they have a higher self too. So I tune in, my higher self and their higher self are kind of doing
Mm.
the work up here and
Yeah.
sending me messages as to
Mm.
what will be most helpful to say and do. Also, intuition. I really feel that intuition is the biggest uh, help we have in working with other people. Um, and we have to distinguish intuition from our own stuff. So if I have an impulse to ask a question or go in a certain direction with a client, I usually kind of go, well, maybe. If it keeps coming back, then
Mm.
I'll act on it, but I act on it in like Assagioli would. Well, do you think this might have anything to do with your father? Or, a gentle suggestion, not like, well, obviously, you have, you know.
Mm.
So, and if the client rejects it, I know one, it could be I was completely off, or two, they're not ready.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
put that in the kind of in the archive here and continue with whatever the person is ready to open up to. But then later on, maybe even in the same session, they might come and say, you said earlier,
Mm.
and so it's offering intuition, but very gently and very and staying with whatever the client is, wherever they're willing to go, and and
Mm. Thank you. I
and
love
loving
that.
and
Yeah.
loving and loving them.
Loving
Yeah.
them, yeah. I love
Yeah.
that. Their higher self, I'm meeting with my higher self and they are doing the work. Yeah, I love this. Thank
Yeah,
you.
it's
Yeah.
like I like that because it was like you were really getting to the heart of it, like
Mm.
the equality that you have to genuinely feel, rather than oh, I'm all right, I'm fixed, and they're
Yeah.
not. And that's also good for people who are watching who are having their own therapeutic experiences, who aren't therapists, but are
Yeah.
just going through
Yeah.
the experience or thinking or considering of doing it. So that you want to have a relationship where you feel like you're working with an equal. You're not,
Yeah.
you don't feel like somebody is there to just fix you.
Yeah.
They,
Someone who is human. Yeah.
yeah, they're giving
Mm.
you space to find yourself. One of the things that we wanted to just get you to talk about a little bit is the work that reconnects.
Hmm.
Could you say a few words about that as well? Because I think that's really interesting, and we haven't touched on that in our interview yet, really.
Well, uh, I think I said earlier that I was involved in psychosynthesis like from my late 20s until I was well into my 40s and maybe even 50. Um, when I encountered the work that reconnects. And at that time it was called deep ecology work and or despair and empowerment work, it was even called. And I was attracted to it because I'd been interested in peace psychology. And at that time, the word eco psychology had not yet been invented, but it was, I was interested, what's the psychological aspect of the way we treat the environment? Why are we trashing our planet and collectively and individually? So I wanted to find a way to bring a psychological perspective. And when I found this deep ecology work, it was like, oh, here it is. Here it is. we feel pain not just because of our own personal stuff, but because we feel pain when we see uh, a, a, a river being polluted or a tree being chopped down unnecessarily uh, or I feel pain if I see someone mistreating their child in the airport or wherever.
Mm,
Um, we feel pain because we're interconnected, and that is the basic message of the work that reconnects. So we reconnect when we realize that, when we make that conscious instead of wondering, why am I so upset? Uh,
mm,
is it just a psychological pathology on my part that I'm upset because somebody's killing somebody else? No, it's because we are actually interconnected. So
mm,
I started going into coming to the work, what's now called the work that reconnects, because it just seemed like an extension, a logical extension or expansion of psychosynthesis. But so for a long time, I was really working hard to bring that perspective into psychosynthesis, which seemed to me to be way too focused on the individual and maybe a little bit on
mm,
relationship, like marriages and family and stuff. But it was as if we were each a little monad separate from everything else.
mm, mm,
And so I really wanted to expand. But now I want to bring more psychosynthesis into the work that reconnects because
mm,
I think there is an element of needing to do your personal work and heal your old traumas and so forth that are affecting the way that you can be in the world.
mm,
And, there's a lot of talk now about trauma awareness and trauma informed therapy or whatever. I feel like psychosynthesis has been trauma informed. We just haven't used those words.
mm. Yeah.
mm,
But a lot of the work that I've done with clients is healing old trauma
mm,
and uh, seeing where somebody is being triggered by an old trauma and going back and
mm,
trying to heal that trauma so that they can be more present for what's
mm,
actually happening in the moment. So anyway, that's my secret
mm.
belief is that we've been doing trauma informed therapy for a long time. We just didn't call it that.
Yeah. Just
And and there is something to, there's certainly a lot of contribution coming in from that field.
yeah.
But
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that that's absolutely right. That psychosynthesis has been really sensitive to that sense of trauma, but and at different levels of the psyche as well.
Mm,
And been really good at articulating it, but but that hasn't translated out, I think. Sounds like what you're doing is you're bringing it together
mm,
with this other movement that uses different languages and different language and sort of ideas, but mapping it together.
Mhm.
I just wanted to help our viewers just to understand it, what we're talking about here, because in your book, the Coming Back to Life, you're talking about basically there's an industrial growth society. That's what you sort of define as the problem. And we're trying to move towards this life-sustaining society. Have I got that right? So what the work that reconnects is the work we're doing as individuals to sort of transition from a very short-sighted way of living to a more holistic way,
Mhm.
that's going to lead us to this life-sustaining society. Have I got that right? Um,
Yes, but we're not doing it as individuals.
as a collective.
Yeah,
mm,
there's a very much of a sense that, I mean, I can't save the world all by myself. Uh, and even though I'd like to.
mm,
But so it's seeing myself as part of a greater whole with a role to play, but with a kind of humility of, okay, this is my part and this is your part and this is your part, and together we can do something
Mm,
that we couldn't do as individuals. So it isn't enough to just heal my own psyche. I also need to look at the structures of our society that are causing harm, causing
mm,
trauma to people, and see what can be done to change those
mm.
collectively again, you
Yeah.
know.
That really speaks to my heart, Molly. I'm from Brazil, and last year I'm from south of Brazil, Rio Grande do Sul, and last year in May 2024, the southern state of Brazil suffered horrendous floods that destroyed 70% of the state. It was just horrendous. Like my hometown was destroyed under the water. Loads of relatives lost their homes, and it was just heartbreaking. And I've been in the UK for almost 18 years, and I consider myself quite detached from my own country. Until that point, there was, the survival mode that I was required me to put my head down and identify with this culture. But when that happened, I was so heartbroken. I couldn't stop watching the videos of I'm an animal lover massive, and the obviously there was a lot of human suffering, but there were the suffering of the animals was also equally breaking my heart, and it was the pain and the connection with the land I felt. I never felt it was just almost unbearable, and I feel a bit emotional just talking about that. And my inability to my frustration of not being able to do anything, I thought. And that's when I thought about psychosynthesis in that way. I really got my will, and I remember like not being able to function or even to sleep. And then I put a collection on these websites to collect funds, and I told the personal story about what my family was going through, and I received so much love. It was incredible. So much love and donations, but love from total strangers, from people whom I know well, but or people I didn't know well, but they just donate and send words of love to total strangers in Brazil. And when I came up with that money and shared with my family for people to buy doors because and their homes because the doors swell with the flood, and buying things they weren't expecting, and it was incredible. And I think, and I when you were talking about the psychosynthesis in that, yeah, I thought I couldn't do anything, but I used the will. I showed up, human heart, and I received so much love. So it was, yeah, and it changed my perspective. Now when I see disasters, and I don't just scroll, and I watch, and I feel people's pain as well. It just reconnected me. Yeah, thank
Right.
you.
And then,
Mm,
and you tune into your inner guidance as to what you can do.
mm,
And even all you do is send a prayer. Uh, I mean,
yeah,
it's been proven, scientifically proven,
yes,
prayer makes a difference. And
mm,
you don't have to have a belief, any kind of belief system to know that you know
yeah,
objectively it makes a
yeah,
difference. And I do that a lot when I feel real helpless about some situation. And there's lots of situations in the world today that I feel real helpless about, is to just send positive energy, just send prayers, send love. I often use a meditation from
mm,
Buddhism, which is may this being be happy, may this being be at peace, may this being be free from suffering. And I can send that to Donald Trump, because if
mm,
he was happy and at peace, he wouldn't be behaving the way he is. So it's always possible. And I believe yeah, there's a lot of negative energy out in the world, but we can also send positive energy out, and
Yeah,
it does make a difference.
it does. Mm, thank you. Um, yeah, thank you. What are you doing work-wise at the moment? So yeah, you active, you seeing clients,
Well, actually, I've gone through a period of not seeing clients because I just was so busy. I just wrote a book with two other people, which is called it's sort of a sequel to Coming Back to Life, and it's
mm,
called Coming Together in the Great Turning, Collective Liberation and Work that Reconnects. And incidentally, I think psychosynthesis is work that reconnects too. Uh, because we reconnect with the parts of ourselves that we've tried to push aside and get rid of. But and it's really bringing more of the anti-racism, anti-oppression, anti all the isms that we need in today's world because the work that reconnects has tended to be mostly focused on environmental issues, not entirely, but there was a need to bring more awareness about uh, white supremacy. And when I say white supremacy, I don't mean the radical Nazi types. I mean just the assumption we white people tend to have that our way is the best way and everything else is different, if not inferior. And without even knowing we're thinking that, you know. So the book is about doing the work that reconnects with a more expansive understanding and more welcoming to people who are
mm,
from, we call them people of the global majority. That's the term we're using now because they are the majority. Us white folks are not the majority. We tend to use the word
mm,
minority to refer to people of color, and in fact, we're the minority.
mm,
And so that's why I like that term, people of the global majority, because it puts us white folks in our place.
mm,
So that's been a very big part of my life.
mm.
It is now in with the publisher, and it'll come out in the fall. And so,
Does it have a title already?
pardon?
Does it have a title, the book?
Yeah, Coming Together in the Great Turning.
Coming together in the great.
And it's being published by New Society Publishers. And actually, I can send you a link
Yes,
that you
please. We put on the yeah. We
Hmm.
leave on the description of this video. There will be the link.
because it's already on the New Society website. So that's been a big part. I am also part of a team of people that we call it a facilitator development program in the work that reconnects, in which we're training facilitators
Mm,
in the work and how to do it because there's gajillion practices. It's very, very interactive in the work that reconnects. It's not just conceptual.
mm.
There's a lot of wonderful practices that are, I think, very psychosynthetic.
If you
Uh,
send the links for us for where to find you, where to find your work, we will share here as well.
Hmm.
my
Thank
website,
you.
mollyyoungbrown.com, and I incidentally I go by Molly Brown now, but there was a period of time when I thought Molly Brown was too simple, so I started using my maiden name, Molly
Mm,
Young, and now that's my website, but I now just go by Molly Brown. Um, go simple. Um, so that I'm doing that. I'm also planning on offering a psychosynthesis course with Mark Skelding, who is from New Zealand and now lives in
mm,
British Columbia in Canada. And we're
mm,
going to offer an online course that we're working on together because I am feeling like people need psychosynthesis to help them get through these very, very difficult times. and find their way, their path of service, their path of heart, as Carlos
So this
Castaneda.
the course you're planning is for trainers or it's
No, it's for
for
just anyone,
okay.
maybe especially activists, but it doesn't
Mm.
obviously exclude anyone. It's
So
just like,
and that will be on your website when it's available. So if you
that's right,
if you share
that's
the
right.
links for us,
But we're
we'll
just
share
in
it
the
here.
planning stages,
Yeah.
but we may start in the fall if we can. Um,
Mm.
and I'm excited about that. So teaching,
And
a
mm.
lot of teaching.
And
I'm sorry.
social media, do you use any platform? No?
Mm,
Or if you give us your
I
link
have,
for your
I have,
website so people
I
can
have
find
a
you there.
Facebook. I
That's
have a
fine.
page, but honestly,
Mm.
I use it just to post political things that I agree with.
That's all right.
Sign
People
this
can find it.
petition
Yeah.
or whatever. And yeah, and I have mixed feelings about using Facebook because of, you
Yeah.
know,
No, that's fine. It's just so we know where to
political
find
fact.
you. So
Yeah.
if you share your website, we'll share it here.
And it's also partly my age. I'm not of social media generation.
No, I
And
feel like that myself. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, my website's probably the best bet. And
Mm.
also, uh, of course, the Work That Reconnects has a website called the Work That
Mhm.
Reconnects Network. So workthatreconnects.org. So there's information there too about things. And I'm also serving right now on the steering team of AAP, which is the Association for the Advancement of Psychosynthesis in North America,
Okay.
USA and Canada. And
Mm.
I was on the original steering team, and it just about fell apart. So
Mm.
Mark Skelding is very active in that one as well, and we're trying to bring it back together. And we have a big conference planned, the first conference in the United States for 10 years,
Oh,
in
wow.
10 call at Garrison, and that's happening in July. So that's on the website too, and the AAP website. So
Mm.
check that out as well.
Good.
Yeah.
Thank you, Molly. It's been incredible. Really, really lovely having this conversation with you. We
Mm.
super honored you. And I want to thank you for the work you've been doing for so many years, for your contribution to the world. We started asking what was your mission, how you see, but it's incredible. I think we cannot put into words in this hour, but for your contribution in the world of psychosynthesis with your books, your seeds, your wisdom, and for all you do and continue doing. And yeah, we're really grateful. It's really an honor to have you. Really enjoyed this conversation.
Love talking with both of you.
Oh,
It's
it's been,
delightful.
it's been fascinating, honestly, listening to you. Yeah, it's really interesting. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anything else you'd like to say? Anything that would be said?
Mm. Well, I'm gonna take my role as an elder and say I'm just sending blessings and love to everyone who hears this podcast or watches this,
Mm.
and know that you have within you the wisdom and uh, love to guide you into doing what you're brought here to do, or whatever you're called to do. Called is a really important word for me. I think we should listen to our callings more than pay attention to goals.
Mm.
Callings
Yes.
are
Yes.
coming from within, and
Yeah.
can change moment to moment. So to me, Gaia is the higher self. The planet as a whole, the whole of life on planet is well, Assagioli called it the transpersonal self or the universal self. And that's what we really all need to tune into and be guided by.
Yeah, we absolutely do. We need to tune into that. The world would be a lot better if we all started to do that.
Mm.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Molly. Thank
Mm.
you.